Hello, everyone. My name is Teresa Barrios, and I'm a Family Engagement Specialist with the Center for Family Engagement. Thank you for joining me today. If you're here, it tells me that you're interested in applying to our Enhancing Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in your PTA grant. We're really excited that you're here. This is going to be a quick overview to give you a glance at the purpose, the benefits, the expectations, and the timeline of the grant, so you kind of have a sense for what it'll entail. And then before we start off, I always like to, since we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I like to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to the definitions of these three words that we often refer to as DEI. So National PTA defines diversity as the representation of and respect for people from different backgrounds and identities. We define equity as providing fairness in resources, opportunities, and outcomes so that all communities get what they need to be engaged and to be successful. And then we define inclusion as actions, behaviors, social norms that ensure all people feel that they are safe, welcomed, and that they belong. National PTA also believes that DEI is a journey and not a destination, and that there are different stages within our DEI journey. And we can kind of fall within these stages all the time, depending on the work that we're doing. But the purpose of it really is that we are always striving to be more equitable and striving to hit the equity in every piece of our work. So just to give you a quick glance of how we define our stages, our beginning stage is also referred to as our color or identity blind stage. And either by design or default, the PTA doesn't uplift issues of diversity, inclusion, or equity in any regular routine. And this could be because, your PTA feels uncomfortable doing so, or maybe you've never done it before. And so it's not something that, comes naturally. So this is our beginning stage. And then if a PTA that's focused on diversity is typically within our emerging stage. So these PTAs are usually focused on recruitment and building a membership that really reflects their community and having a leadership that reflects their community. And then our next stage is inclusion, which we refer to as our intermediate stage. And here PTAs are focused on culture and creating an environment in which everyone feels comfortable and have the ability to participate fully and bring their full selves to the environment. And then equity is our advanced stage. And in this stage, PTAs are focused on improving systems to improve equity. So the primary goal here is really just to integrate equity and equity lens into every aspect of their work. So think about equity as being systems and making those system changes. So this is really where we want to be, where we want to strive to be all the time. But as I said, depending on what area we're in, we might fall somewhere in between. And that's exactly why this is called the journey. All right, let's dive a little bit into the grant. So what's the purpose of this grant? So this grant's purpose is to live out our mission of making every child's potential a reality by enhancing your DEI practices. So this is going to make you question. We want to make sure that you're questioning your assumptions and learning from families' experiences and learning from the research. We want you to be able to invite diverse perspectives to better serve your community. And then we also want for you to contribute to national research on families' experiences engaging in PTA. So what's in it for you? We're going to help you. This grant really helps build and strengthen connections with families and education decision makers in your community, because you are going to be having those one-on-one or group conversations within your community of how PTA can better serve maybe some of your underserved communities or other folks that you haven't engaged in the past. This is going to help expand your resources and skills to listening to families from diverse backgrounds. It's going to elevate the voices of parents as partners in influencing your PTA's policies, practices, and activities. So you want to make sure that we're not only talking to to families, but also making sure that they are part of the process, they are part of the change, and they feel that so they can be more actively and meaningfully engaged in the future. And then you're going to learn new research and best practices in the areas from regarding family engagement and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we at the center will make sure that you have the resources and the research and best practices that you need to be successful. And then you're going to be able to network with a small group of other PTAs from across the country to really deepen, who are also deepening exercising their leadership in diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is often my favorite part to see, is PTA leaders really collaborating and giving each other feedback and learning from each other in sessions. So this is going to be a great benefit to you, and it's a network that you'll always have. So to give you a little bit of a grant overview, the grant timeline is going to be, we would start January 2022 and we would go through June 2022. So what are you going to receive from us? You would receive $500 in funding for your PTA to complete a diversity profile and to engage the families that you haven't typically reached, and to collaborate with your principal of districts or state PTAs, and then to circle back with the individuals who you originally engaged. And then you're also going to receive trainings, you're going to see tools and technical assistance from us to make sure that you're getting what you need to enhance your family engagement efforts with a focus on inclusion. And then you're also going to receive individualized coaching and peer-to-peer support to plan and problem solve. So as I said in the previous slide, it's really about that peer-to-peer connection and that network that you're going to have as a support system that will be something that we will be able to provide. All right, and so what we expect from you, these are some of the major pieces of this grant are going to be the diversity profile and outreach plan. So the diversity profile is going to be a outline of who's in your community, right? So you're going to do that yourself. You're going to be able to sit with your own demographics. And then your outreach plans, we want you to think through, once you kind of identify a community that maybe you haven't reached in the past, we want you to create an outreach plan that's really tailored to that community. So maybe really thinking through, what are some of the biases that I've had, or, what are some of those systemic challenges that might be in place that we need to make sure we break to meaningfully engage with these families. We want you to conduct outreach, coordinate logistics, and then secure participation to hold listening sessions or one-on-one interviews, and engage at least 15 people that are representative of the community that you chose. We want you to collaborate with your principal and district or state PTAs to discuss your findings and next steps. This is a really big piece of making sure that your work the work that you're going to be doing is really important. So sharing that out and collaborating with other folks within your education system is really going to make your work more impactful in the long run. And then you're going to actively engage in our monthly community of practice calls and coaching calls. So those are all things that we'll plan for you and put on your calendars, but we hope that you'll be able to join us for those, and we'll be here for the coaching calls at all times. And then we also expect for you to design a DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion action plan with concrete strategies and changes that you plan on making within your PTA to make it more inclusive. So this action plan is really going to be, we want it to be reflective of what you heard from the communities that you previously engaged, that you engaged throughout this journey. So that's the main piece of that, is just kind of bringing all of that together and how you're going to act in the future. So, and then we broke these down. I know I just went through a lot of expectations. So just so you have a sense, I know the year gets busy and there's a lot of things that are probably already set. So let me walk through some of the timeline for some of these things, so you can also kind of think that through in terms of your PTA's current schedule. And keep in mind that some of these things we've learned from the past year and a half or so that things happen, and we're flexible, and we often kind of adapt as our, cohort of grantees need things. So just keep in mind that this is our current timeline, but it is a little flexible, and we can work with you. So our orientation webinar is going to be January 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern. You're expected between January and February to complete a diversity profile and your outreach plan, and then to also kind of start opening the registration for your listening session or one-on-one calls. And then from March to April, between March and April, you're going to be receiving ongoing support as you need, especially as you're planning the listening sessions or one-on-one calls. And during this time, we expect you to complete your listening sessions or one-on-one calls and engage at least 15 individuals. And then we'll also have a group call to kind of review the findings. So everyone will have a chance to kind of share out what they heard on their calls, and then also we'll be introducing the action plan to you and kind of showing you how to plug in some of the feedback that you received into action. And then between May and June, you're going to engage with your school principal and your district or state PTA to share your findings and develop an action plan that'll be due in May. I think this piece is where you've kind of collected and you've really sat with some of the feedback and just making sure that your action plan aligns also with what the broader your broader education system is thinking, and to show them the awesome and amazing feedback that you received, because it could be really beneficial to them as well. And then we'll do a group call to share out your action plan so everyone has a sense for how everyone implemented the feedback. And then you have the opportunities to submit a proposal for implementation funding by June. And this is optional, completely optional, but if you get to a point where you've created an action plan and you're ready to go, we are offering only the folks that have received this grant the opportunity to receive additional funds to implement their plan. So just keep that in the back of your mind. We will go deeper into it once we're in this process, but just know that there will be an opportunity for that around June, after we wrap up a little bit. All right, and I wanted to make sure that we went through a little bit of about the questions about the application. So our application is pretty short. We like it to keep it sweet and simple. So we have two questions on our application. The first one being, how is your PTA currently embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion in your work? So just remember, I know that a lot of you are probably doing a lot of different things, so we would love to hear a few of the examples. And there's a lot of areas within the, the PTA work. So, maybe you're focused on improving diversity, equity, and your inclusion in your programming, and you've taken, your programming past the international night, and you're doing a monthly chat about different cultures and races, religions, or traditions that are represented within your community, so your community can really connect and learn more about each other. So that's just one example, but I know there's so many more, and I know you're all doing so many different things, so we look forward to hearing some of your responses. And then the second question is, which populations have you struggled most to engage? And what are some of the root causes for that disengagement? I think a lot of folks might have, once you read that question, you immediately kind of think of a few examples. But I really want to challenge you for this question is to think of families as, they're really doing their best, but what within our school system, or what has systemically been a barrier for them to engage? So maybe there are several languages that are represented within your community, and your school doesn't have staff that speaks it, or has never really invested in providing translations or interpretation. So you see a lot of these families that, they engage with their child's education in different ways, but they don't really come around because maybe they don't receive the information in a way that they prefer to see it or understand it. So this prevents them from engaging. So think about it like that as to what are those systemic barriers that might prevent families from engaging. And then we also, in terms of the application on our main page, on our landing page where you found this video, you'll also find a link to the rubric that the judges are going to be using to judge your responses. So use that to really craft a response that gets you the highest score within the application. And then the most important thing of all, the final reminder, is the applications are due on December 18th. So do it through open water. And if you have any questions throughout any piece of this process, make sure you email the Center for Family Engagement at familyengagement@pta.org, and we'll be sure to guide you through whatever you might be experiencing, or hop on a call with you, whatever is easiest for you. So we're here to help, and we hope to see your application. So thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day.